Greetings sailors and welcome back to World of Warships and a recent replay of mine in the Lenin with some rather good matchmaking, as you can see. Now this was in a division with Patreon supporter Andy CX there, and I've actually got a replay of his coming up that he sent me that it's going to be a bit filthy. It's a CV game, it's a Ryujo game, but it is a very close, quite interesting match in a lot of ways. But for this one, well, he's actually on the receiving end, as it were, because he's in a destroyer and there is an enemy CV, although it's only a tier 6, it's only a Vesa, so it can't hammer him with rocket planes quite so much. However, that's not really a concern right now. As you can see, he's been outspotted by whatever enemy destroyer is on this flank and is taking some fire, but that's the nature of playing a Russian gunboat. Meanwhile, I am doing my best to focus down this Cleveland, who is probably the biggest immediate non-destroyer threat to Andy right now, and also just a good ship to tackle anyway. If they can get into a position behind an island and start spamming, that's going to be bad news. Although this isn't really a great map for the Cleveland overall. There's not that many islands that are usable in that sense. We've also got an allied Cleveland here who's going to be quite near me for most of this game. I think is going to be playing reasonably smartly in comparison to this enemy Cleveland. I'm not entirely sure what their move was here, but they are just absolutely getting hammered. And on this flank we also have a Bismarck, who I think is quite probably a Deadeye player, just based on how they play, based on the route that they take. And they're actually going to end up surprisingly high up the scoreboard, or at least it was surprising to me. But they clearly were managing to land hits and do damage. It's just their positioning was perhaps not exactly superb. Anyway, Andy getting extremely lucky there in that he's just managed to get out of that life. He was being spotted by those Vesa's planes and is down to now just a couple of 100 hit points, but he does have a heal available, so he's going to at least be able to recover some of that. So we know there's a destroyer, or there was a destroyer ahead. That's been taken care of. The other destroyer is on the other flank, so this leaves us a bit of room to move up, and we do have some, in theory, superior enemy numbers here, but they're not especially pushing. I mean, the Cleveland moved into that forward position and is now dead. Not entirely sure how they thought they were going to use that, but anyway, that's them done. And once I have gotten myself unspotted, I can then maneuver back round and hopefully get some damage on the probably the Lenin would be a more important target than the Nuremberg. The Nuremberg is not super high priority. They also are being rather bold, considering that they are bottom tier. This is not really how you want to play a Nuremberg in these circumstances. The other flank, they seem to be tangling amidst the islands, and it doesn't, I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell from the minimap how it's going over there. It doesn't look like it's going especially well or especially badly for the time being. I mean, both destroyers on that flank died, ours and the enemy team, so that leaves Andy and ours as just the only destroyer, which might be a bit of a pain for him in terms of focus from the carrier, but he's at least doesn't have to worry about getting outspotted on the surface anymore. So some speculative shots on the Lenin, who isn't actually looking my way at the moment. I think they must be looking at the Andrea Doria maybe, but with just that amount of angling they have, it's enough to prevent me from getting any substantial damage. And I am myself taking a slightly higher risk angle to try and get all 3 turrets going on the enemy Lenin, but now that he's bow in, it really is the superstructure pens that I'm going to have to try and get if I want to do any substantial damage myself. Now at this stage, I must admit, I think I was a bit concerned about the possibility of the Lenin going for the ram, and that's why I've slowed right down and decided to try and give myself some manoeuvring room if it looks like they are going to rush forwards, but as it turns out they won't do, and instead we're just going to be basically bow on towards each other. Although I'm about to get a bit greedy, try and get my third turret on this enemy Lenin again, and that's going to turn out to be a mistake, even though I'm not particularly over angled. I mean, I think the third turret angle, what would you call it, the C turret? I don't know. Anyway, it's probably better than it is on the Nelson, for example, and this is just generally a far less squashy ship than the Nelson, but even angling out enough to get off that shot has cost me a fairly substantial chunk of health. So yes, that was a bit of a mistake. I was just getting greedy there. Talking of angling though, that looks tasty. I was maybe aimed a little high, but yeah, no, RNGesus was not especially kind to me there. That Lenin backing around the corner though, I'm fine with that. They're under fire from Andy and possibly the Bismarck as well, although you begin to see what I mean about the Bismarck maybe being a Deadeye user, given that they're not exactly getting stuck in and getting in the thick of it right now. And in fact, it looks like they're on a course to head behind that island in C2, which is going to actually cut off their possibility of firing at stuff for, I don't know, good 20, 30, 40 seconds, however long it takes to traverse that. Anyway, that was a very nice hit on that Andrea Doria. That was a substantial chunk of damage, and that's also exactly why you don't do what they were doing. You don't chug along slowly broadside 13 kilometers away from a battleship that is 2 tiers higher than you and expect to get away with it. And if you do get away with it, it's just sheer luck. In this case, however, the Andrea Doria was not lucky and took a pair of citadels as well as some extra pens on top of it. So they're now feeling a bit more shy. They're actually starting to maneuver and angle a bit, which they should have to begin with. But they're not really the main concern that I have right now. That would in fact be the Gneisenau, who has of course bigger guns but also torpedoes, which at this stage, if I ate, well, even one, it would be nasty, but you know, if they get into a position where they can nail me with all three, that would be downright unpleasant. And yes, just checking on the position of the Bismarck there, who's just merrily chugging away behind that island. Yeah. So I'm actually concerned enough about the possibility of the Gneisenau trying to rush me and taunt me that I'm going to queue up some high explosive. But unfortunately, because my turrets weren't exactly in sync, I am less than a half second away from getting both those turrets to fire, and instead only fired one, so whoops. And I'm also speeding up a bit now as well, because yeah, this guy's clearly closing in to try and to drop those torps. If you're wondering about the HE, by the way, it's so I can maybe knock out his torp launchers, and because I know for a fact he's firing high explosive, and you know, although he has a quick reload, I was just taking the risk that I'd be able to get away with making a broadside turn, and it did in fact work out. So no joy on knocking out the torp launchers, unfortunately, but there's the torpedoes, and he's now pushed in far too hard to get out of this, so it's just a matter of taking him down, and that'll be that. Now here's where the turret arrangement of the Lenin comes in super handy. That middle turret can traverse 360 degrees. And oh boy, wouldn't that be a lovely feature to have on the Izumo as well. So not only does this have a very quick turret traverse for a battleship with 16-inch guns, it also has that 360 degree turret traverse on that mid-turret, which allows you to respond very quickly in situations like that, whereas in other ships it would take substantially longer for the turrets to turn all the way around the front. It's just a very nice little feature of this ship, and I'm not quite sure why it gets to have the benefit of it when it maybe doesn't need it that much. Anyway, and not that I'm complaining about it as a feature, it's just, you know, something Russian bias? Yeah. Anyway, the Andrea Doria apparently hasn't really learned their lesson. I actually thought they were trying to accelerate into cover, and not really. They were just kind of hanging around trying to take shots, going slowly broadside again, and paid the price. So now all that's left is the last couple of enemy ships. The Bismarck made their way rather slowly round to the cap, and we've also got the Kiev. We've also got Andy there as well, and they've taken down the enemy carrier at least. So there's only a little bit of aerial spotting left at this point for them to worry about with the fighters that the Vesa put up as the dying gasp. But they've also got 2 light cruisers racing back, and it looks like this Tirpitz is thinking about it as well, but that is giving me some lovely broadside shots, and so I'm definitely over-angling here, but taking advantage of the Tirpitz needing to get their turrets around, and there we go, able to angle back in time for their shots to more or less not do very much. And that was actually my high caliber as well. So we're approaching 150k damage, which is not too bad. The Furious actually floods out the Tirpitz. I don't want to press too hard to give the remaining battleship, the Caracciolo, shot into my broadside, but I don't really need to move up super far anyway because, oh, there we go. Poor Edinburgh. Yeah, because these last 2 cruisers in racing back to the cap are exposing themselves massively. And I'm really just now trying to help out Andy as much as possible, who is tangling with the rather scary prospect of an Atlanta. And the Atlanta was absolutely fixated on trying to kill Andy. Notice how they completely ignored the Bismarck to the extent of not even putting out torps. The Edinburgh tried to put out torps, but the Bismarck has been able to actually avoid those. And there we go, the Cleveland's actually killed the Caracciolo, so don't have to worry about that anymore. But unfortunately, I'm not able to replicate what I did to the Edinburgh on this Atlanta in time to save Andy. So he's gone down right at the end of the match after having a very rough start, but then being able to recover somewhat and actually managed to get reasonably high up on the score screen, as you'll see. I can't remember his exact position, but we'll see in just a second, because this Atlanta is about to die to the Bismarck. So there we go, 179,000 damage done, as well as a Confederate and high caliber, which is a pretty nice result overall, and nearly 1 million credits received. Top of the team, 2.2k. That Bismarck in 2nd place somehow. Andy in 3rd, and that Cleveland that was near me the entire time in 4th. So yeah, overall, I think that was a pretty nice result, and one of those rare occasions in a standard game where I actually managed to have some amount of fun, which doesn't happen that often in standard games. They tend to just kind of ruffle stomp one way or the other, but we were able to clean up enough on our flank that even though the other flank did ultimately get overwhelmed by the enemy team, we could then just come across the middle and okay, say what you like about the Bismarck, but them and Andy putting pressure on the cap forced those remaining enemy ships to do something about it at that point, which then gave me a lot of lovely opportunities to shoot broadside enemy ships. So it worked out quite nicely in the end. Anyway, so if you enjoyed this replay, you can do all the usual things down underneath it, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.